Okay, yes, good time to start. Hey, good evening to you all. Welcome to another edition of The Stake. And now, against the election period, I really want to have a conversation with Gambians. And in this conversation, we'll try to enlighten each other for us to have a common understanding of what a government is, the importance of the citizenry to participate, and why we have a president. I think the first topic I want to talk about is the reason why a republic happens to have a president or a prime minister. Well, in the case of the Gambia, we happen to have a president. The president is the head of government. And the president is elected by the people, and with good constitution, the president should have, a majority vote before she is elected in office. Meaning, a simple majority won't do. Let's say someone with 29% of the vote being president, a good constitution doesn't allow that. But unfortunately, as it stands today, the Gambian constitution allows people to be president even with 21% of the vote, like the Wolofs will say, Rau Gadu. So whoever comes first, that's it, regardless of your performance or your timing. But anyway, I want to really have a serious, honest conversation with my fellow Gambians. Because if you look at the timelines on social media, most of us are not bothered or worried about what we need to judge a person who wants to be the office holder of the office of the president. What I've been seeing on social media, it's showing that the Gambian electorate are either oblivious of what it takes to be a president, or we just don't know better. So I will go with the latter and say that since we don't know better, it's time we have a conversation, and the conversation should revolve around what is a president? Who should be elected a president? What do we expect from a president? And what a president should deliver to the people that voted him in office. It's unfortunate that in the case of the Gambia, 1965 to 1994 has been the only time we have done something looking at the greater good's interest as it relates to society. 1994 to 2016, we had something that we didn't like, but Gambians ended up having what you call a coping strategy, a way to deal with it, and in dealing with it, it became a way of life. This way of life has brought us attitudes, behaviors that are unbecoming of good citizens. And that is boot licking, brown nosing, knowing right from wrong, and still choosing wrong over right. That is because of the dictatorial rule of Yahya Jammeh and what we endure as a people. Then come 2016 coalition. The coalition basically was the willing of conscientious Gambians to come together to get rid of Yahya Jammeh once and for all. Therefore, our choice was not born out of just the sheer need to make a choice, but our choice was born out of our need to eradicate a brutal brute. That means the decision that were taken was taken under duress, in the sense that all we wanted was to see Yahya Jammeh out. Well, we have an opportunity now. Yahya Jammeh is no longer. The days of dictators are gone so far, because I am able to sit here and talk to you. You are able to go out and express yourself the best way you see fit. Therefore, the decisions we are going to make come this election should be decisions that are worry-free, trouble-free, stress-free, in the interests of the nation. What is the interest of the nation? The interest of the nation is to make sure peace, law, and order primarily prevails. Peace, law, and order prevails. That's the first interest of the nation, and this is a collective interest for anyone who lives in the Gambia, citizen or otherwise. So it's our collective interest to make sure we live in a peaceful environment. But mind you, we also need to understand that peace is just not the absence of war. Just because we are not fighting doesn't mean that we are at peace with ourselves. Just because we are not bickering doesn't mean we're at peace. A peaceful society is underwritten by a good social contract. But that's a topic for another day. I was just trying to say that the most fundamental thing is a peaceful society where law and order prevails. Then secondly, a society that promotes equal opportunity for all. Thirdly, a society that avails its citizens with economic opportunities, social upward mobility, etc., etc. This can only be done if we happen to have a political class led by a president who understands that the social contract of a country must make the citizens and the people who live in that country better off and not worse off. Therefore, we, the citizenry, are the drivers of our destiny. We, the citizenry, are the ones who are going to decide how our lives and livelihoods are going to be by making sure we bring in the right people to manage the affairs of state. Hence the reason we have an election day to choose a president. Choosing a president shouldn't be difficult, but choosing a president equally shouldn't be emotional. Choosing a president must be premised on logic and premised on what Jeremy Bentham, a professor of philosophy, would have said, the greater good's interest. The greater good's interest is what we do as individuals, but collectively it translates to what's best for the greatest good. And if the greater good of society benefits, that particular society becomes a progressive society. A progressive society will now end up being a prosperous society. A prosperous society is a society that will eradicate poverty. And that's what we need as Gambians. And therefore, our decisions ultimately should make sure that Gambia becomes a progressive society. Now, we are close to election period, and we should decide on our free will who we think can take this nation forward. But this decision, like I said, should be devoid of tribal nuances, should be devoid of personal affiliation to an individual, should be devoid on personal return or interest, especially that of an economic interest. Because if I protect my personal economic interests, I am still not helping society. And that's why we have rich people living in a poor country and yet still they're not safe inside their castles. They buy expensive cars, Bentleys, Rolls Royce, Range Rovers, and they're still driving in shady roads. So society doesn't win when the greater good doesn't win. So therefore, our end game should always make sure we look at the greater good of society's interests. It's not an ideal, it's not an idea. It should be a way of life. But for this to happen, we need to debunk few things that are stuck with our tradition, our culture, and our way of life. The president, in the Wolof sense or the Mandinka sense, or generally in the Gambian context, is called Bur Mansa. That is the first problem we have. The president is and should be a servant of the people. Bur is someone who has dominion over people. The president doesn't have dominion over us. We are a sovereign secular republic. Hence, the right and the saying that power is derived from the sovereign, we the people. When power is derived from us, we the people, it makes the president subservient to you and me. Therefore, the president is the servant of the people. He is serving at our pleasure and our will. That's why Adama Barrow is running helter-skelter, traveling the length and breadth of this country, trying to convince you and I to vote for him. That's why Halifa Saleh is doing the same. That's why lawyer Hussein Dabo is doing the same. That's why Esafal is doing the same. That's why the NOP candidate, Mr. Jame, is doing the same. That's why Mama Kande is doing the same. If these people had dominion over us, they will instruct us on what to do. But it means the citizenry don't understand their power, and the citizenry don't understand where they are placed in the scheme of things. We are supreme. We are powerful. We, the people, are mighty. But we have been taught and made to believe that our servants, the public servants, starting with the president, the ministers, they are our bosses. That is a no, no, no. We are their bosses. That's why we can sack them and show them the red card through the ballot box. And that's the beauty of a democracy, and a participatory democracy for that matter. So the first thing we need to do as Gambians is to debunk the myth that the president is a boor. The president is king. The word of the president is ultimate, supreme, and doesn't need anyone to say otherwise. Well, I will start by saying freedom starts with freedom of the mind, emancipation of the mental state of the human being. We need to free our minds. And in freeing our minds, we will now look at our leaders as our servants. And if we look at them as our servants, we will never allow them to subdue us. We will not allow them to hoodwink us. And we will not allow them to take us for a ride. And taking us for a ride cannot go as far as someone spending $150,000 a day for upkeep, and this doesn't include electricity, diesel for the cars that they use, etc. This is just his household needs. It shows that we the people are not woke. It shows we the people are not smart. It shows we the people are either indifferent to what has been meted out on us. We cannot be a poor country and give people a lifestyle that doesn't commensurate with the very people who put the coffers of the state together by paying taxes. So something is wrong, and what is wrong is that we the people need to understand that we need to change the way we think and the way we allow our governments to treat us as a people. Because if up to today the president of our republic didn't step foot in our hospitals, especially the RVTH, which is less than 100 meters from where he sleeps every day, it shows that he doesn't understand the job at hand that has been tasked and given to him by our votes. So this is what Gambians need to understand. You elect a president to understand the wants and needs, the collective wants and needs of the society, and make sure they do what it takes at a least cost to give society a better life and livelihood. And this is something we are lacking. This is something our leadership cannot give us, because they don't think that way. They put self before us. And putting self before us automatically fails them on being our leaders. If you choose to be a president of a republic, you have to be selfless, and the republic should be your primary preoccupation, not self, not any other vested interest. So that's one thing I want Gambians to understand before going to the polls. Adama Barrow is not doing any Gambian a favor if he tells you he's buying ambulances for us. Adama Barrow is not doing any Gambian a favor if he comes to Barton Harding Highway to do a foundation stone for the 6-lane highway we're doing. You voted him in office because you had expectations. Meeting those expectations are part of his job description, and no one should pat him on the back or clap for him because you thought he will give you the best thing possible out of the little that this country has. So doing his job is not worthy for celebration. But how he does his job, how he conducts himself in doing his job, is something you should put under the microscope and scrutiny, especially when it comes to procurement and public contracts. In doing his job, has he done what's best for society's interest in curbing cost, in making sure that society gets the most with the least, rather than society getting something with more than what it should cost? Well, if the answer is shady, we need to wake up and show him a red card, because what we need and what we deserve is a president who will make sure that we do what is right and he gives the country what is best for country. Then another criteria we need to check. There is a Latin saying which, if I translate in English, is we are all first amongst equals. All Gambians are equal under the law, but not all Gambians are equal by virtue of competence, capacity, and character. Not origin, character, competence, and capacity. Now, if we have to judge President Adama Barrow based on competence, character, and capacity, is he fit for purpose? I'm sorry to say, categorically, without hesitation and unequivocally, Adama Barrow is not fit for purpose, for the simple reason he lacks the wherewithal to be a leader. Inasmuch as he wants to lead, he lacks what it takes to lead. What does it take to lead? Primarily, I will say character. What is character? Someone with a courage of conviction and conscience. What do I mean by that? Someone who doesn't need the laws to know what is right and wrong. Someone who doesn't need for someone to remind them of the duty and honor to country. Now, if I make such a blanket statement about an individual, I must give anecdotal references to state why I say what I say. Well, if Mr. President can stand in front of a journalist looking at Gambians who go out on that hot sun December 1st, 2016 to vote for him, to listen to him, and he says without any fear, any second thoughts, with glee, if you are campaigning, you can say anything. That is a problem. That is worrisome. And that makes Adama Barrow not fit for purpose. That's just one. Secondly, he understands how far and from whence we came collectively as a nation. Therefore, he understood our suffering, the indignation that Yahya Jammeh meted out on a cross-section of this country, society. And yet still, he has the audacity to go all the way to Kanilai, the birthplace of Yahya Jammeh, not only at his birthplace, his own home, to visit his family, to make amends with them, when he is yet to visit the victim center, when he is yet to see and deal with the victims of the 22 odd years of brutality. That person is not fit for purpose, because the greater good's interest is not what is important to him. Therefore, he once again is not fit for purpose. Thirdly, if he so choose and decide to be strange bedfellows with people who have brutalized Gambians, who have maimed Gambians, who have looted our chest, our treasury, our coffers, our resources, then that person called the president is once again not fit for purpose. Now, the choice is ours, we, the citizens of this country. What you do with your vote is not for Nyang Jai to tell you, but you should make sure your vote counts towards transforming our lot, transforming this bad luck we've gone through. What is bad luck? Bad luck is when you have high expectations and the turnout and turnaround is abysmal. 2016, we were all jubilating because we thought we were triumphant, hoping for greater and better days. Now we have now reached a point whereby better days have eluded us. But better days have eluded us because we happen to have a leader who doesn't understand what better days are for Gambians. He knows what better days are for him, because we have seen the physical transformation of him and his immediate family. We have seen the structural transformation of him and his immediate family by the buildings he's building, the material possession he has acquired at the expense of all of us. So is it that we are stupid or we are indifferent? I know most of us are not stupid, but some of us are selfish. Selfish in the sense that the status quo as it is working well for us and we are benefiting. Since we are benefiting, we are oblivious to what's happening to the greater good of Gambians. And this is the predicament of us, the Gambian. This is why we are suffering collectively as a people. This is what's making Gambia a backward nation, because we put our selfish interests before the collective good. And right now, if we want to change our country, we must make sure the collective good comes before personal. Because if you look at the ministers enabling President Barrow, they know too well what's happening is not in the greater good's interest. Yet still they're pushing that agenda. It shows selfishness and it shows disregard for the greater good. And whenever you show disregard for the greater good, it means self comes before us. And such a people cannot be public servants. And that once again should bring us to a somber reflection, whereby we put a mirror and look at self and ask ourselves, are we better off or are we worse off as a nation December 16 to date? And any honest Gambian will admit that we are worse off. So why give a chance to someone who has changed your fortunes adversely, unless you are selfish? So right now, I think the equation is Barrow should be out of it. He has the right to ask us for our vote, but we should be dignified enough to say he doesn't deserve our vote because he never looked out for us. I therefore believe we should look at an Esam Baifal, we should look at a Mama Kande, we should look at an Ablai Jame, we should look at a lawyer Dabo, and see who we want out of this lot. That's not Nyang Jai to tell anyone who to vote for, but I can tell you who not to vote for based on precedent, something he has done to us. Now, ask yourself, do you have dignity in you as a Gambian? If the answer is yes and you have dignity, should you give your vote to someone who has robbed your dignity? Robbing your dignity doesn't go as low as you getting sick, going to a hospital, and you cannot be treated because that hospital is ill-equipped. Being robbed of your dignity doesn't go farther than someone breaking into your house whilst you're sleeping, holding you to gunpoint or knife point and wanting to take something from you. Mr. Jeng, good day. That in itself shows that your dignity has been compromised. Now ask yourself whether the young Gambian kid who is supposed to be given an opportunity in life to build life skills, to be able to be an independent member of society who will be productive, but because of corruption, monies that were meant for schools didn't go to schools, and he ended up having poor education, ended up being a drug abuser, ended up being a criminal. The dignity of that Gambian has been robbed by the administration that really perpetuated his ill fortunes. Therefore, any Gambian with conscience should say that we cannot and I should not give my vote to someone who hasn't brought nothing but misery to my fellow citizens. He had a chance, he squandered his chances. Now, it's now up to you and me to vote wisely, vote our conscience, and liberate our country. In liberating our country is to make sure we hit once again the reset button for a genuine, sincere transition that's going to bring a turnaround that will be the beginning of a new dawn for our country. The Gambia is yearning for a new dawn, and that new dawn will not emerge if the Gambian is not resolute, if the Gambian is not willing to put tribal nuances, personal interests, to say that I am going to look for what's best for the greater good of Gambians, so the greater good of society can be better off. I want to do a series twice a week to the runoff to this election, hoping I can invoke the consciousness of my fellow citizens, hoping I can tell my fellow Gambians that what's at stake come December 4th is more than saying Wiu Barrow, Wiu Dabo, Wiu Fall, Wiu Sala, Wiu Jame, Wiu Kande. It's about changing the fortunes of the average Gambian. It's about changing the image of our country. It's about putting hope into the hopeless and destitute Gambians who form the bulk of the unemployed numbers in this country, the youth folk of this country. It's about us coming up front and say never again is not a cliche, but a way of life, and a way of life we're going to uphold, and anyone who stifles on this way of life is robbing onto the dignity of the Gambia. If these things are important to us, we will X Barrow before he even goes to the polling station, because he will not be part of our equation, because he has amply demonstrated to us that that is not what's important to him. What's important to him are those 4x4s, the land grabbing, the personal enrichment at the expense of us all. And we should not tolerate nor allow that. So Gambians, let's wake up. Gambians, let's wise up. Gambians, let's stand tall for the preservation of our dignity and pride as Gambians. I therefore urge you all to take your time, shop for your candidate of choice. But while shopping for your candidate of choice, do a tactical analysis. What is a tactical analysis? Do I want my vote to be a symbolic vote, or do I want my vote to be a substantive vote? A symbolic vote is I voted for X because I believe in him, but I know X cannot make the difference or deliver Gambia to the promised land based on numbers. Or you say, I made a substantive vote. The substantive vote is my primary preoccupation is I want change and the status quo must cease and end. If I want the status quo to cease and end, I must make a tactical voting strategy. A tactical voting strategy is to say that my end game is change. And in all fairness, looking at the environment, candidate X is the candidate who can bring about change, not because I like him, but he has the numbers at hand. So therefore, I'm going to do that to end the perpetuation of the status quo primarily. But even after tactical voting, we should all put pressure on whoever wins this coming election to say that the way we lived over the past 5 years is not a dignified way of life. A dignified way of life is not a life whereby you have to wake up 3 a.m. in the morning to fetch water to be able to have a shower and cook a meal during the day. A dignified life is a life where a police officer will not beat a fellow citizen because the police officer thinks he is mighty and powerful. A dignified life is not seeing your country being used as a narco hub to bring drugs, and nothing is happening in the judicial space to punish would-be traffickers and enablers of trafficking. A dignified life is for you and I, God forbid, when we fall sick, to go to the hospital and have best care our country can give us. Today, our hospitals have been torn into death traps, a place you go to see your final days. That is not dignity, and that's not what we bargained, and that's not what we deserve, and that is something we need to collectively fight and stop. Hence the reason we need to vote wisely, and we need to make sure our vote counts. We need to make sure our vote brings in the change we collectively need. Because that is one thing all Gambians across the spectrum, unless you are enjoying, unless you are benefiting from this current status quo that is holding this country hostage as it relates to its development trajectory. I therefore urge all of us to vote our conscience, liberate our country, make sure Gambia stands tall to be counted in the League of Nations as a respected member of the fraternity of nations, especially in the region we live in called West Africa. Nit dafa am nawle te deka dafa wara am nawle. If we look at our next door neighbor Senegal, we will know that we are still primitive as it relates to our development trajectory. Do we have funds to be a modern state? Yes. Are those funds being used judiciously to transform Gambia into a modern state? No. Why? Because we have state capture. State capture by a group of people who see Gambia as their resource to extract. And that must stop if you have dignity in yourself. And this is why we should all come together and fight the status quo to bring an end to it, and not only bring an end to it, but bring them to book, because they have taken us for a ride when we have been taken for a ride for far too long by Yaya Jammeh. And this is what I want my fellow citizens to understand. This is what I want my fellow citizens to understand, that this is not a partisan issue. 2021 election must not be a partisan election. It must be an election to regain the dignity and pride of our nationhood, the dignity and pride of our citizenship, the dignity and pride of our struggles past. If we allow the status quo to go ahead, we might as well say that we should have allowed Yahya Jammeh to stay. And I have an equation, and this equation mentally is in my mind to date. If we all said that 2016 Jammeh must go because something was wrong, and we unanimously accepted that something was wrong. Now, since we unanimously agreed that something was wrong and it needed to be changed, we decided to come up with a coalition. The coalition has failed us as it relates to what we wanted and expected, but we cannot cry over spilled milk. We need to change where we were to where we ought to be. How? Now, if anybody wants to vote for President Adama Barrow, de facto you are voting for Yahya Jammeh. Not only because he is in coalition with APRC, he is continuing the very things that Yahya Jammeh had in our books. The seditious acts, the Public Order Act, the simple majority for our electoral code, obnoxious, media laws that are so repressive that can put people to jail who are merely just expressing themselves. Today, if I want to have a demonstration, I have to go to the police, and it's up to the discretion of the police whether I have the right to go out when my constitution has guaranteed me unfettered right to express myself as I see fit. So voting in office President Adama Barrow is, by extension, is a stamp of approval for the way we've lived under Yahya Jammeh, and I want Gambians to understand that. Number one, with all due respect to Mama Kande, voting for Kande equally is accepting Yahya Jammeh 2.0. Why? Mama Kande may be a good human being, and personally I like the guy, I admire him, but for the God of me, I cannot understand the logic of him wanting to affiliate with people who denounce the TRRC, people who believed that most of what people are saying about Jammeh are false, just like, the Jews and the Holocaust, the Nazi and the Holocaust. We suffered, and we suffered immensely, and some people are ridiculing our suffering. Some people are belittling our struggles. Some people are making our miseries to be so minute. So any politician that is willing and ready to be a strange bedfellow with anyone who ridicules us for what we've gone through, I think we should put a stop to your ambitions. So for me, an Esam Baifal is a green light. People who want to vote for him, so be it. People who want to vote for Halifa Saleh, so be it. Ablai Jammeh, so be it. UDP lawyer Dabo, so be it. That's the freedom of choice. That is what we want in a country. Divergence. And in divergence, we should also see our unity of purpose as one people under God and one people with one purpose, a better Gambia. Our divergence and our diversity should be our strength, and this strength should give us the purpose and the courage and the conviction to say we are going to build a model Gambia, a nation that we all will be proud of, and we're going to gift to the next generation of Gambians, and we will even give them a better Gambia than our foreparents gave us. Then I will understand that our reason for our nationhood, our statehood, our citizenship has been fulfilled. And this is what has eluded Gambians, our pride of nationhood. We should have pride in calling ourselves Gambians. If we have pride in calling ourselves Gambians, we will not be happy with the filth that's on our streets. We will not be happy with the lawlessness of our traffic. We will not be happy looking at our capital, Banjul, the way it is, because we will put pressure where it ought to be born to make sure we build a modern city-state. So who needs to change? It's not the politician. It's you and I. We the people need to change. And the change we need is to force our leaders to understand that they are our servants. Our leaders cannot be more Christian than the Pope. Likewise, our leaders cannot be more of our masters than us, the masters ourselves. Our leaders are our servants. But we have allowed our leaders to be intoxicated with power to the point that they think they lead us. No. We give them the privilege, not a right, the privilege to direct the affairs of state. And this privilege is an honor. And this honor is something that any human being with conscience should have the gratitude and said, country has given me so much, and I should not let country down, and I should give country all. Well, for the case of Adama Barrow, we have given him an exams, and the exam is his 5-year term, and he has woefully failed because he put himself before us, and the best result to this is his personal transformation from him to his family, be it the wife, the kids, etc. No offense, Gambians should all have an upward mobility. That's what I wish. All of us prosper. But we cannot allow the few to prosper at the expense of the greater good and at the expense of our public resources. And that's why any conscientious Gambian must not give their vote to Adama Barrow. And if they give their vote to Adama Barrow, watch and send andagi as it relates to their responsibility to state. The other candidates, their choice. But it's high time we think, and high time we ask ourselves, the conversations we have over social media insulting people's mothers, will that help our country? The answer is no. The president made a statement yesterday that come fiscal 2022, that's January, he's going to pay all Alkalulu's salary. I think what should have flooded the timelines of Gambians is the debate. Mr. President, tell us how you are going to do this. Mr. President, tell us how you're going to finance this. Then we have a debate. But unfortunately, Gambians are not interested in having a debate as it relates to what's going to take this country forward. Our debates are so narrow and it's all about personal issues. Gambia is not in need of that right now. Gambia is in need of our brains. Gambia is in need of our hearts. And Gambia is in need of our mights. That's what this country needs. Sweat, brain power, and our hearts. That's what Gambia needs. It needs our brains, our sweat, and our hearts to make sure we can transform it to be better than what it is. I will continue this series at least twice a week, and I hope you guys, you enjoy it and it becomes food for thought for you to sit down and ask yourself, what have I done for country lately? Well, if you haven't done much for country, do the bare minimum for country and vote wisely. Vote for the best interests of the collective good. Make sure your contribution towards making Gambia a better place becomes a meaningful contribution by not wasting your vote, but putting your vote wherever you think we can have a better Gambia. But I will close by telling all well-meaning Gambians that a vote for Adama Barrow is not a vote for a better Gambia. Because he has been tried, we gave him the test, he has failed, but he not only failed, he failed us with indignation by showing us he doesn't care about how we think and feel. If he did, he will not tell us when you're in election you can say anything. If he cared about us, he will not allow people who took this country for a ride by looting the public coffers of this country to be so close to him. He will not allow contracts to be given to people fully knowing that these contracts are bloated and they were not done in the best interest of society. If he means well to us, he will not take from our coffers $150,000 a day to feed himself and that little family of his. If he means well to us, he will not drive a car provided to him by a patron who happens to have an economic rent-seeking interest in our economy and country, and yet still he had the audacity to tell us, Kalilu gave me this car. Oh no, sorry. Kalilu said he bought this car in America. What a shame. But it's not the shame, it's the belligerent act he perpetrates on us in your face, like he doesn't care about how we feel. When you care about how your citizens feel, you should care what you should do to them. And this president has shown us he doesn't give a hoot about none of us. If he did, our hospitals would have been better, not lining it up with ambulances. He would have lined it up with MRI machines, CAT scan machines, ultrasound machine, cancer treatment machine, a good proper laboratory for blood banks, dialysis machines from all nooks and crannies of this country. That's what the Gambian is yearning for. That's what the Gambian is expecting from anyone who wants to be a president in this country. I therefore believe it is incumbent on all of us to make sure we not only vote wisely, but we look at the character of individuals we want to bestow power onto. Character means everything. Integrity means everything. And when a person lacks integrity and character, it's like a flesh standing without a skeleton. To thine own self be true. And President Barrow, to your own self be true and ask yourself, have you been fair to the Republic, considering where the Republic has picked you from, where the Republic has brought you, and whether you have given back to the Republic what Republic invested in you? That's for you to answer. But for my listening audience, it's for you now to ask yourself whether President Barrow has been fair to the Republic. If you believe he has been fair to the Republic, I just want to ask you a few things. Why is it that we're having more women dying of childbirth today? Why is it that we're having more dropouts from school and failure for their middle and high school exams? Why is it that drug abuse is so rampant in this country? Why is it that crime is so, all over the place? Why is it that procurement in this country is done not in the interest of the greater good? You look at the recent outcry with GNPC and their supplier, who doesn't even know fuel was given an opportunity to sell fuel, all because of crony capitalism, because of a dysfunctional procurement system that is fueled by patronage, and this has led to a state capture. During Yahya Jammeh's days, the country was bad, but the level of state capture by a very few selfish, indignant Gambians has brought this country to its knees in all productive sectors of this country, be it fisheries, be it agriculture, be it our energy sector, you name it. Why are we allowing it? And this is something that must come to an end, and it will only come to an end if the citizen wakes up, wises up, and understand that the country is ours, not the people who have captured the state. And it's our responsibility to make sure that this state capture comes to an end And it should not only come to an end, it should come without impunity, and that means we need to bring them all to justice and let them face the law for what they have done to country, because we deserve better. And we are about to gift Gambia to the next generation of Gambians, and as it stands today, there is nothing good that we are about to give them. Our debt to GDP ratios are poor. Our total debt stock is bad. We literally are going to gift the next generation of Gambians a bankrupt country, thanks to the people who enable the politically expedient needs, wishes, and aspiration of a selfish president. That in itself should make you put an end to this. And I expect Gambians who happen to have a voter's card will vote their conscience, will vote for love of country, will vote to salvage a situation that needs redemption. And that is the dignity and the pride of the Gambian. Thank you all. God bless the Gambia. Until I come your way again, I think it was, from my heart, a fruitful discourse I want to share with my fellow Gambians, just to tell you all, we have work to do. And the work begins by reconciling with our conscience. And reconciling with our conscience as patriots should make us not want to vote for someone who has deterred our progress and abuse our resources and our opportunities for a better country. Good evening all. Thanks once again.